Hello, and welcome to what is the second episode of this Rainfall podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the first of the races in this system, in this campaign setting, and that's going to be what's called the Remnants. So, in Rainfall, the world has been destroyed after the invasion of these big entities and creatures and everything like that. And so there really aren't humans left in the world anymore. The vast majority of them were wiped out, or driven underground, or driven away, or used as test subjects in experimentations and have been morphed into new races. But what the remnants are those humans who have managed to survive. They are the very small community of humans who are still alive after all of this. But why are they called remnants now? Well, for one, because they completely reject the idea of humanity. Most races in Rainfall blame humanity for the destruction of the world. They're very well aware of the fact that the world was once much more prosperous and was once at least somewhat peaceful, and that humanity is the one that brought these creatures who would destroy the world here. In contacting them and in trying to communicate with them, drew their attention and brought them here. And so the vast majority of races blame humans for the end of the world. And there is a big prejudice against anything that is human. And so remnants, still being humans themselves, in order to distance themselves from that legacy, they don't identify as humans. They say they're remnants, they say they're a different thing, and they do have some differences. One of the major differences is that remnants have to always be in some form of an environment suit. And this is because when these entities came here, part of what they did was they modified the ecosystem of Earth. They modified the atmosphere and the environment to better suit themselves. And so, in doing so, they've made the environment toxic to humans. And so, to still be able to survive in the atmosphere and in this horrible, toxic environment, the remnants now have to have some form of environment suit to be able to protect themselves from the outside world. And this sort of completely covers their bodies, obviously to seal them in and keep them away from this environment. And this is what most people recognize as being a remnant. In fact, most people will never see a remnant without their suit because they only take them off in very specific circumstances and in places that they know are completely clear of these toxins, and those places are very few and far between. In fact, most settlements that remnants have don't even have any area that they would be able to take their suits off. So, remnants, culturally, they have a paranoia built into their culture. They are well aware that they are the last survivors of the human race and that they are willing to do anything to keep themselves alive and to maintain humanity and keep it alive. And so they are extremely paranoid. They think everyone around them is out to get them, and they think that everything is a potential danger. And so they're overly cautious. They won't take any risks that they think might endanger them or get them killed. And this bleeds over into their settlements. Remnant settlements are highly militarized. They have checkpoints to keep people out. They have guards posted at every entrance and exit, and they vet anyone who comes in and out of the settlements. And so this leads to people being a little standoffish with remnants. They don't want to sort of get on their bad side, upset them, because they know that remnants already don't trust them. And so trade is fragile with remnants. A lot of their settlements are very insular. They're very self-sustaining, and remnants take this safety and the security very seriously for themselves. Um, Now, moving on to what their politics are. Remnants are led by a position of called the Lord Protector. And the Lord Protector's duty is to safeguard the people under their control. And that's the extent of what they do. Every decision they make is meant to secure and safeguard the remnants who are under them, and they have a big bureaucracy underneath them that's meant to, help them carry that out. And every remnant settlement has some representative of the Lord Protector there, who is meant to serve as an advisor to the local ruler, whether that be a mayor or a military commander or something like that. And this representative is allowed to supersede the orders and commands and the laws of any person, anyone who they're helping. That is, the mayor or whoever they're advising. They're allowed to step over their orders in the name of the Lord Protector, because they're supposed to be carrying out the Lord Protector's will and making sure that humanity can stay protected. Now, remnants, due to their sort of paranoid behaviors and their isolationist kind of a mindset, they don't get along well with other races. They tend to be very cautious and very unwilling to make close ties with other races. They'd rather be self-sufficient and stay out of other people's affairs. But they also realize that they need some kind of outside help sometimes. They're not, so stubborn as to not accept help or to ask for help and trade agreements and things like that to be able to keep themselves going. So you see this sort of tense relationship between remnants trying to do everything they can to keep their places secure and keep people out and that kind of thing, while also, having traders come in and, very carefully pry their wares to the remnants who live there. Now, religion among remnants. Most of human society was wiped away with the end of the world. And so the more recognized human religions don't really exist in Rainfall. There are really two different belief systems that remnants subscribe to. And the first and the most major is what's called the Holy Spring. And they see nature itself as a sacred thing. And they see natural places in the environment as holy, and that places in nature have spirits, and these spirits are what they worship. And so places of worship for these believers are sort of secluded, natural places, little groves and shrines that might be set away from the rest of society. And the second belief among remnants are called antiquarians, and they see humans from before the end of the world as being some enlightened race, and so they follow everything that they can about these ancient humans and try to learn everything they can and emulate their lives and hold them almost to a godlike status. And so this is sort of a minority religion among them, and it's kind of taboo to talk about, obviously, because people don't like humans. They blame them for the world's destruction, but these people see them as enlightened and think that there's so much they can learn from them and that they should emulate humans. So finally moving on to their language. Obviously, just like every sort of race in D&D, remnants speak Common, but their own native language is what's called Elder Common, which essentially is human language from before the world was destroyed. Now, this can be whatever kind of a language that you would naturally speak. So for me, thinking in my mind, I usually think that it's English essentially. So it's because these remnants have grown up hearing tales from before the world's end and what the world used to be like, and reading old books from before the world's end, and so they sort of have this understanding of old world languages. Now, before I end this, I want to talk briefly about subraces of remnants, and there are 4 of them, and they're all based on what type of an environment suit they wear. The first are hazard, and so they would be remnants who are wearing like radioactive environment suits, things you would see people like hazmat teams wearing nowadays. And so they're not very thick. They're mostly just to keep out the environment and self-sealed, and they have sort of a visor-like cover on their front of their face. Second, we have space. So these are space suits, actual things like astronauts would wear. And so these are more rare. They are kind of a more elite kind of a remnant. They have a very different look to them, and they look rather alien, the big domed front face. Third, we have diving. And these are people who are wearing a more modern style of diving suit. And by modern, I mean of the time in Rainfall. So this kind of looks like what we would see as an old style diving suit, old copper and bronze and that sort of thing. And these ones are the most common because these suits can be made and repaired easily in modern times because they're built in the sort of modern time. And so you see most remnants wearing something like this. And the final one are exo, and these are these big metal combat suits, big exoskeleton suits that completely surround them, and were meant for combat to sort of heighten someone's natural physical strength and durability. And so these big exosuits are extremely rare among remnants, but you see some who wear these huge metal suits and are these big, bulky things, and mostly you see them employed as like guards and soldiers and things like that. So that's about all I have to talk about for remnants. That was a lot and kind of in a weird way, kind of roundabout and things like that, but hopefully it was understandable enough for you to get kind of an idea of who remnants are and what they're about. Next time, I'm hopefully going to be talking about successors, the next race here in Remnants, in Rainfall. So, hopefully you liked that video. If you did, please subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. And I will see you next time.